Hi class, let me go over your notes from section 4.5, Graph Linear Equations in Math 0404. So this section teaches you how to graph a linear equation using three methods: a table of values, the slope-intercept form of an equation, and using the x and y intercepts. In statistics, you will be graphing linear equations called regression models, but in this course, you'll simply just learn how to graph a linear equation. So this video focuses on the first method, which is using a table of values to graph this first example, y equals 3x plus 2. So this equation must be written in slope-intercept form so that we can have y solved and we can use that equation to substitute easier and solve for y. So we just create a list of values. We can start with -1, 0, and 1. These are not given to you. You can just generate them, or whatever is easier to simplify the y coordinates here so you get nice whole numbers. So all you're doing is substituting the x values that you create and substitute them into the equation for x and solve for y, and then write those coordinate pairs and graph the points. So let's try the first one. We have x equals to -1. So we have the equation 3x plus 2. So we replace the x with a -1. So we replace the x with -1 here. And we get multiply first. 3 times -1 is -3. And then -3 plus 2 is a -1. So this is the y coordinate and this is the x coordinate. So let's write that as an ordered pair, -1, -1. Now let's do x equals to 0. So substitute x equals to 0 where x is, and we find that 0 times 3 is 0, and then 0 plus 2 is 2. So the y coordinate is 2 when x is 0. So let's write that as an ordered pair, so that's 0, 2. Last example, when we substitute x equals to 3, would be replace the x with 1. So we have 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 times 2 is 5. So the y value is 5, the x value is 1. So this is the ordered pair 1, 5. Now that we have these 3 points, let's go ahead and graph them. So you created a table of values from an equation. You did 3 points here, and we plot them on the graph to connect them with the straight line, and that would be our graph. So first we label our y-axis and our x-axis. Then we plot the first point. The first point was at -1. Remember, we start at the origin, we move left 1, and we drop down 1 because they're both negatives. And we plot that point, and that point is labeled as -1, -1. The next one is 0, 2. So 0, 2 is graphed right here, the green dot. The next one is 1, 5. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 is here. So that's 1, 5. Label the ordered pair. So plot those 3 dots first and then connect them with that solid straight line. It should go through all 3 points if we did this correctly. So that's the way to graph the table of values, graph an equation using table of values. So let's try that with one example here. I'm going to move to question number 2. It says graph a linear equation. The equation is y equals to -1/2 x minus 4, and we're going to be using a table of values. So this should be A and B. Let's do those 2 parts. So let's generate a list of values on the table. Now let's try the given values, -1, 0, and 1. If I try to substitute -1 into my equation for x, I'm going to end up with a negative times a negative is a positive 1/2 minus 4, and I need the common denominator. So this is 2 times 2, so we get 1/2 minus 8 over 2, subtract the numerators, -7/2. So that's a lot of work, and I'm going to end up with a fraction. I'm going to end up with -1, -7/2, and that might be difficult for us to graph. So on these, when they're asking you to graph using a table of values or to generate a table of values, feel free to change the independent values. These don't have to be what's given here. As long as they're independent, it could be anything, any value. As long as it's in the domain, I mean, you can substitute. So the domain here, let's substitute any value for x, but I want to be careful here. I want to cancel the 2, so I want to make sure I can multiply by even numbers like 2, -2, 4, -4, something that I can simplify that first fraction to give me a whole number. So let's try -2 for x and +2 for x, and then 0 right in the middle again. So instead of -1, 0, 2, let's try -2, 0, 2. So let's substitute that now again. So we have -1/2. Let's substitute -2 for x minus 4. So now here, when we multiply these two fractions, we get -2 divided by -2, and that answer is +1. So this whole thing gives us a +1 minus 4. The final answer is -3. So now we have a nice whole number at -2. The whole number is -3. So we can use that instead of the messy fraction. Let's do 0. So -1/2, substitute 0 for x. 0 times anything is 0, minus 4. Don't forget, this is a -4. So let's write that as an ordered pair. That would be 0, -4. Last one, we have -1/2. Substitute +2 for x and subtract 4. So we multiply these two and we get -2 divided by +2. So that's a -1 minus 4. We get an answer of a -5. So this coordinate is 2, -5. So now let's graph those 3 points. It's the same equation. Let's graph it on this axis. So again, label your x-axis, label your y-axis. Let's plot -2, -3. So -2 is here, -3 is here. Let's plot that point and label the coordinates. Then 0, -4. Then 2, -5. And you connect that with the straight line. So there's your beautiful graph of the equation y equals to -1/2 x minus 4. Okay, try the rest that ask you to graph using there's another one that asks you to use a table of values. Okay, so try that on your own. Now let's move on to the other way to graph a line.